So I've gone back and checked the tape. I reviewed the evidence, and my foregone conclusion is, yeah, Arkansas is just one of the most confusing teams in the SEC through 4 weeks of the college football season. You know what? I'm going to go a step further and say Arkansas has got to be one of the more perplexing programs in all of the sport heading into the month of October. Because when things are humming, Hog City is a blast. Their offense is awesome. There's a lot to like about the direction that Sam Pittman has this team. And then when things go south, you want to hightail it on out of Fayetteville on a Harley motorcycle and never look back. But regardless, Arkansas is sitting at 3-1. They very well could be 4-0. They enter the Southwest Classic at AT&T Stadium for the final time against Texas A&M with momentum, and their best games are still ahead of them. So how do I compare Arkansas football moving forward? It's a lot like my initial thoughts on Guardians of the Galaxy. And I promise you by the end of this video, it will all make sense. So welcome on into SEC Unfiltered. It's Cole Thompson here. Make sure that you like the video, hit the ring notification, and of course, smash the subscribe button because this is your number one source for all things SEC moving forward. Download the podcast version of the show. Follow us on the social channels to keep up to date with me. Scream at me on Twitter. It's at Mr. Cole Thompson and on Instagram. And check out all of our great work found at secunfiltered.com. So this episode is brought to you by RHOBACK. Use the promo code SECU for $20 off your first purchase. Look good, feel good this upcoming fall on game days with RHOBACK.com. Arkansas, Fayetteville. As the villain of college football in your perimeters, I have to apologize. I was wrong. You won a football game. You won an SEC football game. And while it wasn't the prettiest performance, a win on the road at Jordan-Hare Stadium is a win. Did you have some mistakes? Absolutely. Did you capitalize on mistakes when Auburn gave you the football? Certainly. And in a game where I did not know what to expect, I thought this was going to be one of the more high-scoring performances of the weekend. The over was immediately going to hit, just ching, 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 go ahead and hit it like a jackpot. That's what I thought. It wasn't. Yeah, turnovers from both teams, but more importantly, the turnovers for Arkansas didn't hurt them the way it hurt Auburn. And now you get to carry that momentum. I genuinely don't know what to make of the Hawks. And honestly, I don't think many people in Fayetteville know what to make of the Hawks at this point. When things are good, they're really good. When things are bad, they're really bad. Go back and look at that performance in the first half on the road against Oklahoma State. I know, I was the one person to pick you guys to actually lose to Oklahoma State, and I was right. But go back and look at that game. Halftime, you were up. And you weren't just up. You were dominating. Quentin Jackson looked phenomenal. 3 touchdowns on the day. You also had great play in the second half at times from not just Taylor Green, but also Luke Haas. You saw Andrew Armstrong prove that he was the legit number one receiver. And so I compared you to Guardians of the Galaxy. So let's go back to that point real fast. I had no idea what to make of James Gunn in the movie. I didn't know what to think of a funny fat guy and Chris Pratt now looking like Muscle Man, Macho Randy Savage as Star-Lord. I didn't know what to make of a guy in Dave Bautista to play a really funny character in Drax. I didn't know if Zoe Saldana was going to be good as Gamora. I didn't really know much of the storyline. But I initially pegged it as probably a terrible movie because of I didn't know anything really about the Guardians. I loved comic books growing up, but I can tell you that being completely transparent, that was not on my top of the list. And so I kind of misjudged it. I kind of went in with foregone expectations and conclusions without truly doing my research. And so for me, that's kind of how I feel about Arkansas right now. I don't know if Arkansas is going to be a team that can hold their own against really quality competition. Against teams such as you want to throw in an LSU, against teams such as potentially a Tennessee in a couple of weeks, against an Ole Miss, against a Texas, against an even Missouri. I don't know what to make. But I'll tell you what, when I walked out of that movie theater for the first time watching Guardians, that became one of my new favorite spots in the MCU. And you know what? So far from what I've seen of this offense, it's one of my favorites in the SEC. If you look at the way that they can carry momentum, which is going to be a really big deal heading into Arlington for the final time that Jerry World Roleplay hosts the Southwest Classic, this offense can be really, really interesting. Taylor Green, he's worth the price of admission. I've said that multiple times. I will gladly pay whatever it takes to see him play football. And is it backyard BS from time to time? Yeah, but is it fun? Does it give you a heart attack? Is it a roller coaster of emotions for 3 hours? It is. But when the things are going good, you are just jaw-dropping. And Bobby Petrino made sure that he handpicked his quarterback. So if anybody knows how to get the best version of number 10, it's the guy that you hired back as your offense coordinator and really the last coach that brought you to national relevancy right before everything that went south back in 2012. We're not going to talk about that. I'm not going to go take some low shots. Jaquin Jackson, I think a lot of people are, and yours truly is a part of this, are shocked with how well he has adapted to SEC play and also how quickly he has been the backbone and consistent force for this ground game. I bet you didn't know this. He currently leads the SEC in rushing yards, but he also leads the SEC in yards after contact. 8 touchdowns, 6.8 yards per play. Guys on pace for over 1,000. Guys on pace to be the big reason why probably Arkansas heads back to a bowl game. And they also really got good at wide receiver. I got to give a lot of credit. Andrew Armstrong, Texas A&M Commerce, 1,000-yard playmaker last a couple years ago. Didn't really show you much in 2023. Yeah, he had 5 touchdowns, but 2024, when he's on the field, been a big-time consistent threat. And this was not a name that was a household figure like many others. This was not a player that many people started to peg to be that difference maker. And especially now that you didn't know what you had at quarterback, you certainly got to take that next step forward. Luke Haas being healthy, arguably the best tight end in college football, at least in the SEC when he's out there. And the offensive line is doing its job for the most part. Now, when it comes to Taylor Green, the way I'm going to tell you guys this, if you're an Arkansas fan, you got to kind of treat it like Josh Allen. And Josh Allen for the Buffalo Bills is a really talented player. Josh Allen is a guy that can win an MVP. Josh Allen's a guy that can win the Super Bowl. But with the arm strength, with the mobility, with the ability to extend plays outside the pocket, Buffalo Bills fans have accepted the reality that a turnover is in the making. That's kind of what you're seeing right now at Razorback Stadium. A turnover is going to be in the making whenever number 10 takes the field. It'll be highs. You'll really like it. And when things are really, really good, you know that there is very few out there that can contain the guy who has been arguably probably the biggest surprise outside Diego Pavia, quarterback in the SEC. When things go really, really bad, then unfortunately, you got to go ahead and kind of pivot. Defensively, I think the one caveat that I did not give a lot of credit to, and I didn't talk about much last week, was how well the secondary played at reading out plays. Travis Williams done a really nice job building this secondary to play a physical brand of football, especially near the line of scrimmage. If you go back and watch how many throws by Hank Brown or Peyton Thorne were at the line of scrimmage for screens, they just found a way to blow it up. I mean, literally, they were the bomb squad, and they did not cut the right wire. That was it. They just had explosion after explosion, and they were concise. They flew to the football. And what's really interesting is that despite the fact that Arkansas right now has been really hit and miss when it comes to the turnover rate, they're currently number 2 in the SEC in interceptions. They're right there. So yes, are explosive plays going to happen? Certainly. But also, are you going to see potentially this team make a lot of highlight grabs that keeps them involved? Absolutely. This game in Arlington could be, I think, the defining moment for Arkansas in 2024. You want to get back to that 8-win roster. You want to get back to that 9-3 potential. You want to prove that you are a team that can hold its own against Tennessee, against Missouri, against Texas, where I can tell you this, just knowing many Texas fans in the general vicinity, they are not excited to go play that game late November. They are not excited to head on back to Razorback Stadium and see what happened in 2021 potentially unfold. They're not. But it starts with Texas A&M because this game always seems to find a way to go down to the wire. This game always seems to find a way to be really interesting. And a couple of plays are the difference between a win and a loss between these two squads. Don't believe me? Look at the numbers. Look at how they performed over the last few years. If you can get a quick interception out of the way, the turnover that is expected from Taylor Green on the opening drive, and then build off of that, you're in a really, really good spot. More importantly, this could be the jolt that you need. Imagine that in the final year of the Southwest Classic being played at a place where A&M fans forever have talked only about them coming out on top, but not really doing the research and realizing that it was only this play, and this play that surfaced at the right time to cause an L for Arkansas instead of a win. Imagine that now carrying weight. And then you get to be on the primetime stage against Tennessee and that offense. And then who knows what you're going to see whenever you have to take on an LSU squad. They're going to be coming off of playing a rocky game against the likes of Ole Miss. Imagine how that formation goes. By the way, you're going to get a bye week to get healthy before that. Mississippi State, what about Ole Miss? especially if your defense can play this physical brand, and then you get to go ahead and play Texas. This could be the start. One thing that we can all agree upon is I was wrong when it came to talking about this Arkansas roster and what they could be. I didn't think that there was a lot of hope. I still don't know what this team can be. But I will tell you that I was wrong. They have the fight. They have the determination. And I misjudged them. Kind of like I misjudged Guardians of the Galaxy. You get a win this week against Texas A&M and you're sitting at 4-1. Your best ball is ahead. And you certainly are going to be bowl eligible at that point. You certainly have the opportunity to go ahead and maybe even be that spoiler in the SEC. I like the direction that Arkansas is going. But what version are we going to see? Are we going to watch the one that was more so like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1? Performances that even though you didn't see the best of the best, you got really consistent at the right times against Auburn and Jordan-Hare Stadium? Or are we going to watch Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, where it starts off really good, and then by the very end, you're just kind of waving the white flag saying, please let me get on out of here. Kind of like you did in Stillwater. Regardless, the big little storyline regarding Arkansas, Guardians of the Galaxy. If you remember that first line, they're talking about how they're a ragtag bunch of a-holes. Well, if you're Arkansas, be those a-holes, those Arkansas holes. Be those guys that can truly separate and just defy the odds in the SEC. I'm telling you what, don't look now, but Arkansas might be the biggest surprise in college football for 2024. And it starts this week in Arlington against Texas A&M. But let me know in the comment section down below. Is Arkansas the most confusing roster in the SEC? Like, rate, review, subscribe. Make sure that you're following us on the social channels, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at SEC Unfiltered. Download the podcast version of the show wherever you get your podcast listening systems. And check out all of our great work found at secunfiltered.com. I'm Cole Thompson. Until next time, folks. Later.